Hey guys, Chris here from christhefreelancer.com, and in today's video, I'm sharing with you my experience as a digital nomad here in Sofia, Bulgaria. Alright, talking about cost of living first up, and the biggest expense you're probably going to have, and our biggest expense while we were here in Sofia was of course accommodation. And for this Airbnb, which we're in right now, the 2-week stay cost us 670 Australian dollars, and we're quite happy with it actually. It's fully equipped kitchen, you've got a beautiful bathroom, air conditioning and blinds, so no complaints here. We're really happy with this, and it's only a 10-minute walk to the city center. So this is a really good apartment, and it's not a bad price for the position and how quality the apartment is. Of course, it goes without saying that if you choose to rent or lease an apartment here instead of going through Airbnb, obviously the rates are going to be cheaper. Just looking at the prices of Airbnbs, it kind of puts it into perspective how cheap it would be to actually live here and pay rent. And from our perspective, it's quite affordable. Next up is food and drink. And we actually did a lot of cooking from home while we were here in Sofia. We didn't have time to scope out restaurants and all that. But when we did eat out, it cost anywhere from 5 lev to 15 lev a meal. We've had some meals at a restaurant called Happy, which was really cool. It's kind of like a TGIF, but Bulgarian style, and they serve sushi as well there. Denise and I also went to a proper sushi restaurant, and it was quite good actually, and the prices weren't too bad. Otherwise, you've got food courts, fast food, all that stuff, just like any other Eastern European city. The one thing I'll say though is that they're really big on pizza and burgers here. Everywhere I go, I see pizza shops, and the top rated restaurants, it seems, on Foursquare and TripAdvisor are burger restaurants, and there's plenty of them that you can see around the city. I did mention eating in here in Sofia, and of course we relied a lot on grocery stores. I found the prices actually kind of comparable to Belgrade. I'm going to throw some numbers up on your screen right now. A lot of them for the basics are quite comparable to a low-cost city like Belgrade, which we were in last. Still quite affordable and similar to probably what you'd expect throughout Europe. As for drinking and buying alcohol and beers, it is Europe, and it is especially Eastern Europe, so you can expect cheap beers. I found that most beers that you buy at the store were 1 to 2 lev, and maybe like 2 to 4 or 5 lev if you buy a beer in a bar. For coffees, we found that the prices were quite comparable to Belgrade as well. Prices ranged anywhere from 250 lev to 350 lev. And what's interesting about the coffee scene in Sofia, I noticed less coffee shops, but what they do have in Bulgaria, apparently all throughout Bulgaria, is these coffee machines, and that's quite common to get your coffee takeaway from a machine on the street. In fact, I had a lovely Brazilian coffee that was surprising to me, served through just a machine on the street, but it still tasted great. That was only like 60 stupinki, which is like 0.6 of a lev.
These coffee machines are very popular in Bulgaria, so you have them all over the streets, but this one is a special one that has his coffee, and it's really good.
So from the machines, I'm sure you can get like really cheap coffee. Otherwise, if you want to get takeout from an actual cafe, most of the cafes I go to, it doesn't seem like people are getting takeaway coffee. I think takeaway coffee might not be a thing in Eastern Europe, because when I got takeaway coffee here in Bulgaria, she just put the extra straw in, but it comes like this with a straw. And
good coffee though.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Even in Serbia, actually, I didn't see anyone with takeaway coffees, so I never actually bothered to ask for one. I just sit at the cafe. But it's good apparently.
Needed it.
For public transport in Sofia, they've got a great system. They've got metro, they've got buses, they've got trams, and I found the metro really reliable and connected me to pretty much anywhere I wanted to go in the city. My friend Vlad as well says that he never has to take a taxi. He's able to get the metro everywhere, and For us, we've just been doing single trips and it's cost 160 lev per trip, so not very expensive at all. And I'm sure if you're here for a long time, you can get a monthly pass. Alternative transport options, taxis are always available here in Sofia. We took a taxi to the airport and back when we went to Varna. From here in the city center to the airport, it only cost us 13 lev, which we were quite happy with. But on the way back, we had a driver who decided to run circles just before getting to our apartment, and so we figured he was running up the meter and just left the taxi. This was actually a concern to us before coming to Sofia and Bulgaria. We've heard that as far as scams go, it's basically just taxis. For phone plans, obviously phone plans are a big deal for nomads. We got our phone plans from a provider called Mtel. Luckily there was a storefront just down the road from us, and we paid about $4 for 4 gigabytes of data, and that has lasted us up until now. Finally, under cost of living, I'll just briefly mention gyms. If you like to work out, there's a range of options in Sofia. I checked out 3 different gyms. The first one I checked out with Vlad is called Pulse Fitness. It was a little bit of a trip to get to it because they're on the outskirts of the city, but they're huge and they have lots of equipment. And I'm not sure how much the monthly memberships are, but when we went, they gave us cards for a week for 4 lev each. So to me, that's a pretty sweet deal. That might be an introductory offer. Otherwise, I checked out 2 gyms closer to home. One was called Silver Gym and the other one was Belize. But after seeing Pulse Fitness and then checking out those gyms, there was just no comparison. The equipment was older and it was dingier. People didn't speak as much English. It was just a little bit less friendly. So I ended up deciding to just go back to Pulse when I need to go to the gym. All right, so let's talk about where to work, cafes and co-working. And I was lucky enough to visit 4 different co-working spaces while I was here in Sofia, and there's quite a few and they're all pretty good. I visited Soho first, which is in the inner city near Serdica. It's a space mainly for creatives. I believe Remote Year were working out of there when I visited. Nice building, bit artsy, but not exactly the vibe I was looking for. The second place I went to was Beta House, and Beta House is a pretty famous co-working brand. I believe they started in Berlin and they have offices around Europe. Inside, you got a coffee shop, you got multiple levels. It's more for tech entrepreneurs and tech freelancers and tech teams. But the internet was great there. I really liked it, and I'd probably say it was the pick of the bunch for me. The third space I checked out was called Work and Share. They're newly opened since about 4 months. You know, standard warehousey type co-working space, just in its infancy, but looks to be doing well right off the bat. Finally, the 4th co-working space I went to was Puzzle Co-working, and I spoke to the founder there, Thibaut, and he has a crazy vision for this co-working space. It's in these 2 large buildings. One of the spaces is under construction. They're expanding rapidly, and they have a rooftop terrace which they're building out, which has amazing views of the Vitosha mountain. And this is the space predominantly for tech businesses. By the time you're watching this, it could be expanded into 3 different buildings. It's only a 1.5 years old and expanding rapidly. As far as work cafes go, I looked at a few online, and the one that really stood out to me was this place called Barista Coffee and More. And when I went there, I wasn't disappointed. Walked straight in, everyone was pretty much on their laptop, which is always comforting to see as a nomad. Internet was good. I felt pretty comfortable there and was even approached by a subscriber who was working there. So that made me feel right at home. And for all of these spaces, I won't go into prices here, but they were all pretty reasonable from memory. Make sure to check out the blog post where I'll be putting a table comparing the different prices. And so if you want to know more about how much each of these spaces cost, definitely check out the blog post. Alright, now on the topic of lifestyle and things to do, we didn't do a lot of touristy activities or a lot of exploring the city. We had a busy weekend the first weekend and another busy weekend this weekend, getting ready for our next stop. But one thing I did check out is the #1 attraction in Sofia, which of course is the Cathedral St. Alexander Nevsky. It's this pretty interesting looking, really big church in the middle of a cobblestone street square. Yeah, interesting if you like your religious landmarks. Other than the cathedral, I pretty much didn't do any sightseeing apart from seeing the Roman remains that are scattered throughout the city. Sofia is a city that's rich in history. I think it's the second oldest capital in Europe. So you've got Roman remains and historical sites right next to the metro stations, which I think is a nice touch. It brings together the modern part of the city together with its history. And if you're into history, there is a lot to discover and see in Sofia, I'm sure. As for a long-term lifestyle, we've pretty much gotten used to this Eastern European lifestyle. Not much for me to comment on. It's pretty normal to me as a Westerner, and I think as a Westerner you'll feel right at home. The hardest thing about Sofia, and this has been talked about in other vlogs and blog posts, is the Cyrillic language. So they obviously speak in Bulgarian, but when they write their text, it's in Cyrillic, not Latin alphabet. So to translate things in Bulgarian, like if you see a word and you don't know what it means, it's a little bit harder. You're gonna have to download a keyboard on your phone and type it in. It's gonna take a while to understand what all these characters mean if you wanna stay here long term. But apart from that, it's a really comfortable European city. It's a modern city with lots of history. It's a booming tech hub, and it's also good value for money when you compare it to Western Europe. So yeah, that's pretty much my thoughts on Sofia for digital nomads. Again, if I've forgotten anything, leave a comment below. If you want to know anything that I didn't cover, just ask a question and I'm happy to answer. And remember, if you want more information or to read this video in text form, I'll be writing the blog post as well. You can find that at christhefreelancer.com/Sofia for digital nomads. I go into prices and specific sort of information within that article. And one thing I'll mention quickly about Bulgaria, I also checked out the seaside town of Varna, and honestly, Varna to me was the highlight of Bulgaria. It's beautiful, it's on the coastline, so if you are coming to Bulgaria, definitely recommend you check that out. And also, my friend has started a Facebook group there called Varna Digital Nomads, so definitely check that out if you're interested in Bulgaria. And I encourage you to check out Varna and some of the other spots inside Bulgaria, including Plovdiv, Bankso, Burgas, and Sunny Beach is very well recommended by my friend Vlad. I'm laughing because it's quite it's like the party beach of Bulgaria. All right, guys, that's it from me. Thanks for watching. Be sure to check out the blog post. Click like on this video if you enjoyed this information. And if you're new to the channel, click subscribe. I do these videos on the digital nomad lifestyle, remote work, and travel. Thanks again for watching. I will catch you guys on the next one.